Good evening, everybody. My name is Lorinda, and we are in Finance and Facilities. Today is October 26th. I'm going to pause already and ask my able-bodied assistant, unintended, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so I am headed into surgery on Friday morning, and so I'm in my little safety bubble. I'm not there with you in person. I want to apologize to everybody in the room because when some of us are remote, that means a roll call vote has to be taken. I know that's less than convenient. So, excuse me. Okay, so I'm going to start the meeting. Tonight we are meeting in a hybrid model. As I just said, I'm in the comfort of my home, hopefully far away from some germs. Using remote meeting application provided at no cost to our district, allowing for remote participation and for public access to the open portions of the meeting. We're also recording tonight. BevCam is recording. Are you also recording? Thank you, Ms. Abel. We're also recording tonight and being broadcast and streamed by BevCam. Thank you very much, BevCam. You are a wonderful asset to our community. Due to system upgrades, closed captioning is now available immediately on the BevCam broadcast and will be applied to the recorded version on the YouTube channel within 24 hours. On June 16th of 2021, the governor signed Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, and on February 12th, and then again on July 16th of 2022, he extended provisions to, among other things, allow public bodies to continue to hold meetings remotely until March 31st of 2023, I believe is the date. I think there's a typo in my script, I apologize. This specifically suspends the need for a quorum and the chair to be physically present and asks our body to use technical methods to allow safe public access. We would encourage viewers to utilize the BevCam streaming options this evening, and if possible. And as a note, Beverly has prior approval for remote participation, although via that permission, the chair and the quorum must be physically present when this act and its extensions expire. Tonight is F&F, and we have an agenda, and we have meetings. We have members of the F&F committee as well as members of our district team. So I'm going to run through and do a roll call vote. And as people continue to enter the Zoom, I will try to let them in. So we just let somebody in, right? We let somebody in, Rachel. Okay, so let's start with remote because that's where I can see in the computer. Remotely, we have from the City Council, our City Council President, Ms. Julie Flowers. Fantastic. Julie, can you unmute and say something so if we have to call on you?
I would be happy to. Thanks for having me.
Fantastic. Thank you for being here this evening. We have our Director of Transportation, Dana Cruikshank.
I'm here.
Thank you. We have our Director of Food Services, Christina Leal.
Hello.
We have fellow FNF and school committee member, Dr. Kanan McKenzie.
Here.
Fantastic. All right, and now Ms. Abel, I don't have a view into the room. I have no idea who is in the physical room in the middle school.
Sure, and actually Dr. McKenzie is here in person as well. She's on both ways. We have our school committee representative, Kimberly Coelho.
Here.
Our recording secretary, Liz Curran. Here. We have our citizen representative, Paul Manzo.
Here.
We have our director of finance, Jean Sherburne.
Here.
Our superintendent, Dr. Suzanne Churocek.
Here.
Our director of HR, Aaron Brown.
Here.
And Dr. Andre Morgan.
Here.
That's fantastic. Thank you for the help, Ms. Abel. All right, I'm going to share my screen, and I have on my screen a series of documents that we're going to use for our meeting this evening. Here we go. I have two monitors. You see me looking at my second monitor. Hopefully that's not too distracting to any of you. All right, so what I'm showing, if somebody in the room could confirm that you can see, I am showing the agenda for this evening's meeting.
Correct.
Fantastic. I'll just make it a little larger. I believe that sometimes I'm asked to do that. Okay, our first order of business is approval of our meeting minutes from our last meeting, September 28th, 2022. I'll put those up on the screen right here quickly. Does anybody have any comments or corrections on these meeting minutes?
There are no hands raised in the room.
Fantastic. Ms. Sibyl, I cannot thank you enough for your help this evening. Seeing a motion to approve these meeting minutes, someone please unmute and make that motion.
I'll make that motion. Second.
Fantastic. Thank you. And do I have a second?
Second.
Most fantastic. We need to do a roll call vote. So of our voting members, that's Mr. Manzo, Dr. McKenzie, Ms. Coelho, and myself. Mr. Manzo, will you please start our voting?
Aye.
Thank you, sir. Dr. McKenzie,
Yes.
Ms. Coelho,
Yes.
myself, yes. All right, those meeting minutes are approved 4-0. And next item on our list is approval of some budget transfers. So hold on one second because I'm going to try to find where in my budget transfers. Okay. Ooh, okay. I'm making this larger for people who are viewing at home or via BevCam. I'm going to jump back to the agenda for a minute. Okay. Jean, do you, Ms. Schuber, do you want to say anything about these budget transfers before I ask for a motion to approve?
This transfer number 288 would be the transfers that we need to make for the beginning of the school year. These are all payroll related, so this would be the monies needed from reserve for negotiations to different salary accounts for steps, columns, and percentage increases based on hiring positions for this current school year.
That's fantastic. I think you probably just answered the question I expect to come from Mr. Mando. So I'm looking for a motion to approve this set of transfers, and then we can ask, open the floor for discussion and or questions.
So moved.
Fantastic. Can I have a second, please?
Second.
Most fantastic. Any questions for Mr. Byrne? Yes, Mr. Manzo?
Well, I feel like you put me on the spot now, so I have to ask something. So the format's changed a little bit in this report, and just to be clear, so now we're talking about debits and credits?
Yes, so what I did is, this report is actually run by the order of how I entered them, which started off with the AD, then AY, and so it went in and out. So obviously the debits is where we needed funding to go into, and credits is where we had some funding available to move to those locations.
So those are the ins and outs? of the
Yes.
report. Thank you.
All right, any other questions? I apologize, Mr. Manzo, for putting you on the spot, but you are most fiscally responsible. And so the question always is around, where is the money coming from and why do we need these? And there's something to be said for consistency, and I do appreciate that. So there's a motion on the table. We're going to go in the same order all evening long. Mr. Manzo?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Dr. McKenzie?
Yes.
Ms. Coelho?
Yes.
And myself, yes, that passes 4-0.
Yeah, it's
What
lining
is-
up with the
Wait,
word.
let me get rid of
the
that file. What's
account.
next? Our gifts to schools, always one of my favorite things. We have one gift to
sideways,
school this
it'll probably be
evening on our list in your packets. Just trying to make that as big as possible. $175 donation to the Hannah Elementary School from microline surgical staff giving. Before we have any questions on that, potentially for Ms. Sherburne, I'm looking for a motion to approve.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Manzo. A second.
Second.
Most fantastic. Do we have any questions for Ms. Sherburne on this wonderful donation? Seeing none, Mr. Manzo,
Yes.
Dr. McKenzie,
Yes.
Ms. Coelho.
Yes.
Fantastic. Myself, yes, that passes 4-0. Thank you, everybody. All right, while we're in the mode of voting, I'm gonna jump down here. We have some full-time employee. One is an FYI, but one is a vote. I want us to make sure that we get our voting items out of the way, especially because I think that some of these items relative to food services and recycling could be a lively conversation. So I'm going to ask Ms. Sherburne, what would you like me to show on the screen to talk about the FTEs?
If you can go to the administration update, and I think it was slide 20, 1, slide 21. So the first thing that I have here is an FTE update. So as you recall, last month, we came forward with talking about FTE updates, and the Director of Special Education came forward with me to the superintendent and myself looking for 2 behavioral analyst assistants. So this is information only. What we did is we looked at the FTEs that we have that are unfilled, and there's 2 FTEs that are funded under ESSER for paraprofessionals in the school district, district-wide. So therefore, we're eliminating those 2 because we do not feel that they're going to be filled at this time. If they are going to be filled, we will, of course, come forward and ask to add those back in. But what Ms. Splansky was looking for was 2 behavioral analyst assistants, and in your packet, you would have received the job duties for an assistant. So you know we have BCBAs already, and we're looking for some assistants to assist with that program. They're under the supervision of the BCBAs. So we are giving you information saying we've collapsed 2 para positions and added 2 BCBAs that we're currently trying to hire for. BAAs, Behavioral Analyst Assistants. So this part is just informational, but whenever we create a new position, we bring forward to the school committee a copy of the job description. And if you have any questions on that, the superintendent will help me.
All right, does anybody in the room have any questions on the FTE update? There is one.
Mr.
Is that
Manzo?
mute?
Yeah, so it's great that you're adding these positions. So they're funded with ESSER now, and do we anticipate keeping them when funding goes away?
So we do, and Bethany, I think, will work to identify funding within either one of her grants or some of her special education budgeting this year. Because we had already gotten into the school year, we're going to utilize the ESSER for this year, but she will be looking for ways to move that in. Because we really have identified this as a really important need. So, yeah, and we think it's going to, so these positions will function much like our SLPAs and our CODAs do, which are the assistants that work for the speech and language or for the occupational therapy. When we add assistance in that, it provides more direct service to kids, and so we're really excited about this.
So, but with 2 positions, are they going to be more located in the central office, or are they going to be
Nope,
going out to?
one's going to be assigned to preschool, and the other, it says elementary. I'm pretty sure that one's assigned over at the North Beverly Elementary School.
Okay. But they'll be available to help at other,
They're available to help at other places, but those are the areas of identified need that, so either with most of the time, they'll be working within a program, either our AIM program or the preschool. But
Good, thank you.
And I'm just going to add that Bethany did have a little funding in her 240 grant from last year that may be able to absorb some of this, so it
Even
doesn't
this
go
year,
all
yeah.
to ESSER. No other questions on the BAAs?
Kenny has her.
You have Dr. McKenzie with a question?
I just have a quick question. So if we were to explain this in lay language, what does this person do that's distinct from a behavior specialist?
So the certifications are very different, right? So if you're a BCBA, you're a board certified behavior analyst. These people have background and training in ABA, but they're not board certified. So they work under it. So the BCBA would make the actual plan. I believe these roles will be more helpful in implementing the plans within the classroom, making sure that teachers understand them, and also providing some of that direct work within the classrooms as they're implementing the plan, which is something that we don't really have. We kind of have that disconnect between the BCBAs who are going to a number of different classrooms, but these people will be available to sort of implement those plans and make sure that they transition to the plans in a good way.
Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Sherburne, I'm trying to get back to your thing. Are you ready to go to the next slide? Yeah. If we're done with questions on our full-time, our FTE update, you wish to go to the next slide?
Yeah, next slide, please. So the next thing that we have, which we are looking for a vote for, is that we're finding that the administration would like to add an assistant director of transportation to help with the daily operations of the transportation department. The funding will come from the within the transportation department, and will reduce an ESSER unfilled monitor position for this FTE. So I'm not increasing an FTE, but we are bringing forth that we're looking for a new position that we have a job description for, that we have in a draft format. And currently, we've had an intern in helping in the operations, but we feel that we really do need an assistant director, so when the director is not there, it's somebody in management that is overseeing the department and assisting with getting the students safely to school and home.
Okay, so before I open it up for questions, I'm looking for a motion so we can have the conversation.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to ask you three in the room, go ahead and regulate yourselves to ask any questions that you might have to Ms. Sherburne about this position. Yes, Mr. Manzo.
I don't doubt that the position's essential and needed in the district, in the transportation department, but I was trying to figure out how the responsibilities and duties of this person differ from that of the transportation director.
So mainly what it really is assisting with,
Okay.
with the department. So many times we find right now, the director of transportation is out on the bus, so therefore it's leaving the office vacant. We'd rather have that person out on the bus, so the person we're hoping would be CDL certified and can help with the training. So it would just help in to have Dana in the office and being able to, redo routes, whatever we need to have. And I'm not sure if you have anything else, Dr. Shirachuk?
Yeah, I think that the responsibilities right now of running the transportation department, we have over the past 2 years had to pivot and change and move. We've worked really hard to learn how to take look at the transportation software, which helps us condense our runs, but then there's changes to be made. There's ongoing requests for increased transportation for either homeless, which we have to bid out to vendors. There's just a lot of work going on. And so we really have come to the point where it's not a one, Dana can't really be doing it by himself. And as well as, I'm always looking, for succession planning, right? So there's a good opportunity to bring somebody in and have someone learn how the transportation department works. So in the event of a leave or an absence or anything, not that Dana's going anywhere, just saying that, we want to be able to begin to build that sustainable understanding of the management of the transportation department within the department. And it's just, Dana's been doing a job of 1.5 to 2 people over the last 2 years. And so we're kind of recognizing that and wanting to make sure that we can provide some efficiencies for him.
And so would you add CDL licensure to the job
I think
description?
it's
or
on it.
Is it
I
on
do
there?
believe we have it on the back.
I think it might be in the
It's
job posting on.
Preferred or
Yeah.
obtainable, so
Obtainable,
we
okay,
want, so we do want them to get it if it is.
Right. We wouldn't exclude someone, but they would need to be able to
But
get
there's an
it.
expectation if they don't have it, that
They would
they'll
go
be
to that
trained
process,
in it.
yes.
Yeah, okay, oh,
Yeah,
good,
they would definitely need that.
great, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, Dr. McKenzie or Ms. Coelho, do you have any questions? All right, I have a quick question, Ms. Sherburne. I don't really understand the reduction on the slide. You say we'll be reducing an ESSER unfilled monitor position. I don't quite understand that part of the equation.
Yes, so what I'm doing is I'm not going to increase an FTE, but we're putting on an assistant, which I felt needed to have the school committee approval.
Okay. Okay. Is everybody all set? Are we ready to vote?
Yep.
There's a motion on the table. Mr. Manzo?
Yes,
Thank you. Dr. McKenzie?
Yes.
Ms. Coelho?
Yes.
Myself, yes, that passes 4-0. Okay, hold on a second, we're cleaning some things off the screen. And, all right, so thank you for entertaining that little out of order thing. So now we'll come back up for our regular order of our agenda. Next item on the agenda is our buildings and grounds report. Just going to remind everybody, the huge number of people that are watching from home, as part of stacking our meetings, we get these reports on Fridays, and our request to our fellow committee members is to review them over the weekend and send any questions ahead of time. And then we could address the questions in person in real time in the meeting. Mr. Chairman, I did not see any questions come through on this week's B&G report. Did you?
I did not receive any questions that I saw on my email.
All right. Anybody in the room in real time, do we want to take a minute? Do we have any additional questions or comments on this week's B&G report? Okay, we're going to jump down. So now, Ms. Sherburne, we're going to go into your update. Do I go back to slide 0? Oh, that's a,
Back up to
okay,
the
sorry.
administration
Slide 1.
update. There we go. So the Finance and Facilities meeting today, the update is going to be talking, we're going to have a food service update from Christina Leal. We're going to be talking about recycling with the city, with Beverly. And then I have the financial reports for revenues and expenses that we'll talk about. So I'd like to have Christina Leal, go to the next slide and have Christina Leal talk about the food service update.
Perfect. Thank you so much for having me tonight. So if you look, our goal as always is to feed as many kids as possible nutritious meals. This year, we are continuing to be free from the state. It is a state-funded free, not from the USDA, so it's a little different. But this is how many we have fed so far this year. Is the light blue is this year. This is breakfast in the elementary schools compared to last year. So you can see that all of our breakfast counts have gone up. Total in elementary schools, we are running a 17% breakfast, which is not huge, but it is the biggest we've ever seen other than the year that we were sending breakfast home. So we are super excited with that number. And here we are for lunch. Our lunch numbers are fabulous as well. You can see we've gone up in every single school over previous years. And as the total for the elementary schools, we're at a 56%. And we're going to be hitting well over 250 at several elementary schools every day for lunch. At the middle school and the high school, we are at the middle school, the numbers are climbing every day. It's crazy. We're hit actually almost 1,000 lunches over at the middle school. And this week was the first time we hit over 615 at high school for lunch. So we are very excited with that as well. Doing great numbers there for participation over prior year. So like I was saying, we have served over 8,000 more breakfasts so far this year than we did last year. Our participation's at a 14% combined as a district for breakfast, which is the most we've ever seen other than that 1 year. For lunch, we've served over 11,000 more lunches than we did last year, and we're at a 53% combined district for participation. So this I found really interesting. So in 2019 and 20, they stopped doing the application. They stopped doing benefits. We accepted it. Everyone's status just continued on. So if you were free in 2019, you were free in 2021. We just kept adding and carrying it on. This year, we wiped everyone clean and they had to reapply for benefits, or we had to continue to do direct certs. So it's pretty flat to where we were. It's totally flat. We are at 30% free and reduced, and then we have, or the 33% free and reduced, and a 66% of paid in the district. So it's great that we're exactly where we are, and we really did an effort to get applications done this year because we knew all the benefits were stopping. So we really did a big push to make sure we sent applications to families. The principals were great with getting them back to us. So that is good to see we are where we were pre-pandemic. So our biggest struggle this year, I think no surprise to anyone, staffing. We started the year with 9 open positions, and we currently still have 4, and we are actively hiring. The second struggle is supply chain. We better than last year, but we still are getting a lot of substitute items, which really comes into an issue when we're dealing with allergy students. But we are getting through it, and hopefully it will continue to get better. Some of the improvements that we've made to the department is we've gotten 2 combi ovens, one over at Hannah and one at Centerville. We have a new steamer at McEwen or on order. We redesigned Centerville cafeteria last year, and we completed the IFB to get 4 of the cafeterias redesigned this year. So we're very excited about that. So food insecurities, we still, obviously, it's a big issue still in the area, all throughout the nation. If any parents ever call needing more food, I always put them in connect with Beverly Bootstraps, any way that we can help. Food waste, we do our best we have a new production system, so we really look at not overproducing food, making sure we are not wasting food, educating the students that they don't need to take everything that is on the line, only take what they want to take or what they're going to eat, so there's not so much waste. Definitely encourage them to try new items, but don't force them to take items that they're going to just end up throwing away. Share tables. I am excited to show you on the next screen, but share tables are a great way for students to share food that they want or don't want, and they had to take, and they can put it on the table for other kids at their school in the cafeteria to take them. We actually just got approval from the Board of Health to have share tables back in our elementary schools, or in all schools. We are starting in the elementary schools in November. We have to start with non-perishable foods. So I did have signs made up to educate everyone. They are going to be non-perishable, so it has to be pre-wrapped. It needs to come from the cafeteria line. It can only be bananas and oranges.
Next slide.
I have the rules all on the next page. And so I have these posters printed up that will be in the schools, explaining what can and cannot go on the share tables. So we will start in November. The lunch monitors will be monitoring them. We just went over this with the principals this week and sent all this information out. In the future, we can request to add perishable items to it, but the Board of Health wants us to start slow, start with non-perishable, and then I can just ask for permission to go over to include all items. And then So one of the partnerships along with this is I started this year as I wanted to get more local produce. So we have partnered with New Entry Food Hub. And so I've been getting kale and apples and local lettuce from the area, which has been really good. The kids have really liked all the different apples we've gotten. We've gotten so many different kinds. Doing the kale mostly at the high school and the lettuce both at all the schools. We do have 3 different produce vendors, but I try and get as much as possible from New Entry because they are in Beverly, it is local, and it's just reinvesting in our community.
Christine?
And that is all I think I have. Any questions on anything?
Christina, I'm just going to add that in the packets for the school committee, they did receive a copy of the standard operating procedure for the share tables and for the share tables with just non-perishable. So you can see the difference when she is able to add refrigeration. We just need to make sure we set it up so that we know somebody is following, the procedures and doing that. So that did get to the school committee. It wasn't on your slides, but they did get a copy of that with their packet.
And that's what I had to submit to the Board of Health.
Yes.
All right, most fantastic.
We do have some questions.
Yes, I was just going to say, I'm looking around the room to see if anybody has any questions for Ms. Leal. Yes, Dr. McKenzie.
Hi, thank you. I really love the share table being possible. That's really great. I just had one clarifying question and then an actual question. I didn't know what an IFB was when you were doing your report.
That is an information for bid.
Oh, okay.
So it's when we have to go out to bid. It's an IFB, is an information for bidding.
Okay, I've heard of
So
RFP.
when we were
but not-
getting the quotes, it's the next step above just getting quotes. We have to go out to bid. And there's an RFB and an IFB. An IFB is information for bid, and the other one is request for bid.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
The question I had about process was where you were talking about doing applications again this year. So I was a little confused about the state funding continuing, but then still needing to do applications. Is that because there's a federal reimbursement for those students?
Yeah, so when I submit my claim to the state, I still have to submit categorically. So who's free, who's reduced, and who's paid. And we get funding from the federal government based on the benefit status. And then the state is going to supplement everyone at the free rate. So we still have to make sure I claim everyone in the correct bucket, so to speak.
Thank you.
Can I?
Dr. Shrochek has her hand up.
So I guess I would also just add that it's also really important because our Title I, because of, where we sit with Title I and how our Title I funding is allotted to us, it's really important that we utilize, so DESE allows us to utilize both ways, the direct cert as well as the claiming in the other way. So we really always want to encourage everyone to fill out any of those forms because that helps us when we're writing our grants and doing some of those things.
Thank you.
All right. I have a question, but I'm going to wait to call on myself. Is there anyone else in the room that has any questions? No. All right. I have one question on this slide. Thank you, Ms. Abel. I have one question on the slide, Ms. Leal. Even though the number of paid students remain the same, we do notice that the splits has changed a little bit. And in particular, the number of reduced lunches has dropped. And so do you have any indication or can you give people who are watching this presentation any data around what is the distinction in between free and reduced? Meaning both from what qualifies you for one of these buckets versus the other, and what is the difference? Clearly, if you're getting free lunch, you don't pay anything. If you were getting the reduced price on lunch, what would you be paying?
Sure. So I don't know the income brackets off the top of my head, but I could definitely pass those along of what the criteria is for a free and what would qualify for reduced. It is income based. They also are some that do qualify from direct cert that would be unreduced as and for free. Not sure of what the state qualification. I just do a virtual upload of the students, and then the state comes back of who is in the free or the reduced. If we were charging, the reduced would be 30 cents for a lunch.
Okay, so that's a very low amount, and we're not charging.
Correct.
So you get less reimbursement because you have children, you maybe are getting more reimbursement because we have more children in the free category than in the reduced category.
So I'm getting more from the USDA. The state is making up the district that everyone is at free.
Okay, and from kind of our perspective, I think what's important here is that unfortunately we have more children that have gone into the free bucket. It means that more children are more food insecure. They have less. Their households have less income. So I found that number disturbing. But I love that we're feeding them for free. My next question is around the share tables and.
Lorinda, can I just add something? So I did jump out on the website as far as the income eligibility. So for reduced, it's 185% of the poverty level, and free is 130. So it's, so for reduced, the annual income for a family of two is $33,874 versus free, it's down to $23,803. So it's based on income and size of the family, but those are the two categories that the federal guideline gives us.
Fantastic. Thank you for that data, Ms. Sherburne. I should have brought that myself. I think that it's good for people to hear those numbers because it really is striking. And unfortunately, those numbers are federal numbers, and we know that it costs much more money to live in the Northeast than, for instance, where I hail from in the quote-unquote Midwest.
Correct.
So next question for you, Ms. Leo, is around why only apples and oranges? No, why only bananas? Why not apples?
Because of the skin, it's because their kids are touching the apples and then not getting washed beforehand. So we have to start with the skin that can be peeled or taken away.
And start. I love that word. Do you expect that it will be potentially like milk, like a perishable?
I do. I think one of the things we would have to do is in the standing operating procedure, if we went to apples, is make sure it gets washed. So that might be a little tricky one, but once we do add refrigeration, we could add the diced pears that we have, and the mandarin oranges that need refrigeration can easily go right in there.
And those types of fruits, again, for people who haven't been in a school cafeteria in a while, are in little cups that are sealed on the top.
Mm-hmm.
And so those would have to remain sealed. And if a child broke the seal, then that would not be shareable.
Correct.
That's fantastic. And my last question for you is around your lovely local produce. I love this as well. Is this part of the farm to school program?
So it's not, it is in a sense because it is local. It is not a farm to school grant. So I did not get one of the farm to school grants, but this is something that I really wanted to do. And I partnered with New Hub, New Entry. So they've been fabulous.
Fantastic. Okay. And I have been a big fan of the share tables for a long time, and we've kind of run around this mulberry bush more than once. So I am so excited about this. I'm happy about fresh fruit and vegetables as well. But personally, I'd like to just do a huge thank you. I know that procedurally speaking, we have to involve the Board of Health, but I think it's a wonderful thing for us to do. So I thank you, Angie, and whoever else worked on that. I think that it's a win-win, especially as we look at our sustainability, our new operational sustainability committee, and trying to reduce waste. If we can reduce the waste and help attack the food insecurity issue, that is just a huge win-win. So thank you very much for that.
Absolutely.
Anybody else? I'm looking around the room. Anyone else have any comments? Okay, Ms. Sherburne, where do I go next?
You can go to the next slide after. Thank you, Christina. So the next thing I have to talk about was the City of Beverly recycling. So we've recently been informed that the city has announced that it's now offering single-stream recycling, which means metal, plastic, glass, and paper and cardboard can all be mixed in there in your recycling bin. The next few slides that we have here are coming from the Sustainability Director, Arena Keefe at the city. So it's talking about, recycling with Beverly. It's talking about what you can recycle, food cans, and empty them and clean them, and plastic, and what you cannot put in. So this is a nice little flyer that talks about it. I did want to just point out that I did not know this or did not remember that JRM is our contractor, is part of Republic Services. So when I first saw this, I'm like, who's Republic? So I actually did a little investigating and find out that they merged with Republic. So our JRM is still our contractor, but they are a part of Republic for this. The next slide I have is, it's talking about the City of Beverly and Let's Talk Trash. And they're talking about recycling, composting, trash, a new ban on mattresses, and a new ban on textiles. So I wanted to give this information out to the committee, and we want to, educate, the students, the staff, et cetera, which with our sustainability committee, that we're operational sustainability committee, will be getting the information out to the schools so that it gets another avenue for the city to talk about their recycling. And then the next slide is just talking about the mixed recycling. Just Arena gave me all of these. She said I could choose one or any of them, and I said, well, I'll just put them all out there. Residents should be receiving these kinds of notices with their water bills and maybe their tax bills, I think they told me. But that's all of the information that the city's been unveiling. At one of our recent meetings, I, was confused. Are we single or are we dual streaming? And the mayor had told me that we're going to be single streaming very soon. And then we found out this information. On the website, it says starting November 1st, but I've been told that it's already been going on.
I'm going to interrupt you because I see that our wonderful city council president has turned her camera on, and I believe that she's jonesing to speak here.
You definitely read my mind. I just wanted to note, first of all, a word of appreciation for all of the information shared so far, including, I didn't want to take more time, but I'll just, now that I've unmuted, I'll say, including the share tables and those updates from Ms. Leo. It's really exciting, and I'm looking forward to, I liked your growth mindset on it, Ms. Visnick. We're not doing other fruits or other food yet, but there's possibility that we will. So I just wanted to mention, just a point of clarification, just in case anyone is feeling distressed, the ban on mattresses and textiles in our waste stream is actually a Massachusetts ban that's been coming for a while in the state's efforts to reduce waste overall. So the city is making that change, but I just wanted to clarify that we're doing it alongside all of the municipalities in the Commonwealth. And particularly with textiles, I guess it's a good time to say that if you have textiles that are going into your waste stream, of course you can put them in the textile recycling bins at all of the schools and support the PTOs and the wonderful work that's done at all of our schools. But if you are also happen to do curbside composting with Black Earth, that is another option for folks. You can purchase textile stickers from Black Earth. I think it's like 35 of them for some small amount. And then you put that on a plain white bag of your textiles and leave it at the curbside with your regular compost, and they will pick it up for you. But I just wanted to just make that point of clarification that Beverly is doing this alongside all of our neighbors to better reduce our state's waste. So that's all. Thank you.
As if you're a plant, Miss, which is perfect because your name is Flower and that is a plant. Okay, that was a not intended pun. But,
actually, a terrible pun, but I'll take it.
We do have in the slide packet, this flyer about Beverly Bootstraps and about textile recycling. And I had on my screen, I put it back up on my screen, if in fact you are a member, if you are a subscriber to the compost program, then today, maybe in your email, you got an update. And so our compost hauler in the city of Beverly, again, if you opt into this program, is Black Earth, and Black Earth also sent out some advertising, and so it mentions the fact that you can buy 5 bags for $35 and put your textiles on the curb with your compost. However, for free, you can put your items, as you mentioned, into the textile recycling boxes that are on every school campus, including the McEwen School. And we as a school system earn money for that. And so not only would you not have to pay Black Earth, you'd actually be helping the schools, PTOs earn money when you put your items into the bins at the schools. But this flyer that is in the packet that is on the screen right now that I'm showing was developed in a partnership with Bootstraps and the PTOs to try to encourage people to take the time to sort their items, because Bootstraps does so many wonderful things for our community, and we want to support them, and we want to support those in our community who need support, who need help. So some items can go to Bootstraps, but then there are items that shouldn't go to Bootstraps. So this particular slide tries to speak to that, and I would simply say, if you have the time and the wherewithal, you no longer have to sort your recycling, but maybe sort your textiles and send some of them over to Bootstraps. Bootstraps often resells them at their resale shop, and that helps their operating budget. And if it's dirty or ripped in any way, then put that in the textile recycling bins at the schools, and we'll earn some money for our PTOs that way. All right, Mr. Byrne, I think that I stole the slide from you, so please let me know where you want to go next.
So then I just need to pass by the 2 that we've discussed already, and I'll be at the last things I have to discuss is review of the revenues and review of the expenses. So the revenue report you brought up, thank you. So the revenue report does show that what we're anticipating coming in. If you look at the third column of numbers, that would be the plus and minus over. So let me back up. That the first column is what we are using for our FY23 budget offsets. That would be what we planned originally when we built our budget, what we were anticipating for additional funding sources that through the revolving funds. The second column is talking about the carryover allocated to the FY22 from the FY22 budget into FY23, and that's, as you can see, mostly it's the school choice. So when we built the budget, we were anticipating that we were going to need $831,550, but I knew right from when we built the budget that we'd need $111,094 from the carryover that we knew we had. And therefore, we were forecasted receipts for the school choice was $720,456. That number gets based on October 1st enrollment funding, so I'm not sure if that number will change. If we see that that number changes, which we'll probably hear in December, then you'll see something going into that third column that has the plus or minus, so if we're receiving more or less. Under circuit breaker revenues, we have not received any funding yet this year. We do usually receive it quarterly. I was a little surprised that we hadn't received it when we did this report on the 20th. The special education tuition is funding sources that we receive for students that come into our special education programs and the other districts pay us. And then the non-resident tuition SEVIS funding, that is, we actually receive that money in the spring for the next fiscal year. and that is for students that attend the high school for 1 year that come from foreign countries. And the last one in that category is the education fund, and that we've received $150. We do not budget anything towards that. That goes into a revolving account that the superintendent and the assistant superintendent would look at to see, areas in the school that may need funding. The fees that we have is the transportation, building rental, preschool, and athletics. And the preschool, we have, we budgeted $45,881. And as you can see, we're anticipating $200,000 at this time, so we'll have a surplus of $154,000. Ms. Blansky will be looking at that to see if there's things that the program needs, or if they need additional staffing, she could use that. So as you know, the BAA that we just added a little while ago, that may be that could cover that from the preschool revolving account in the next fiscal year, or when ESSER funding is gone, this could pick up some of those costs as long as they are only preschool related. And the final one is the athletics, and we're really not sure, of course, at this point, since we're only in the first season, if that number will be the actual. In the past, we have used that number in the past several years, and we have been able to meet that number with user fees and/or gate receipts. So if there's any questions on the revenues, everything's coming in. I don't have any surprises at this time. The building rental primarily is churches and a church now, and the YMC rental. And I think it's December, I usually bring forth what do we use these funding for, so what the budget offsets are.
Okay, I'm looking in the room. Does anybody have any questions on our revenues report? No, thank you, Ms. Abel. Next is expenses. This report is many pages. And I would ask if, Ms. Sherburne, do you want to speak to this, or do you want to just ask if anybody has any questions about a specific line item?
So what I'd like to preface on this report is, yes, this report is about 40 pages long. And what is right now at the time is, as you know, when we have encumbrances in the previous fiscal year that are open, that gets rolled into the next fiscal year, those have not rolled yet. I do believe that is actually going to be happening on Friday. So when this report comes out next month, there'll be a little bit of change. So if you looked at the last page of the report, page 40, you'll see that our budget is $69,343,934, and the transfers and adjustments is a 0. And that means whatever we've transferred is always, there's been a plus in one account and a minus in another. When we do finally roll the POs over from the previous fiscal year, you'll see a number there. So when we see this report next month, we'll see the dollar amount that we rolled over, which I cannot remember what that dollar amount is at the time. Then our revised budget will be what we carried over plus our budget amount. What happens right now, if you look at some of these accounts, you may see that they're in the negative, or you may see that they're like almost all spent. Like, how can we be at that point? And that's because the POs haven't rolled over, but the expenses have already happened. So when we have POs that were initiated in June, the idea is that you're encumbering that so that when the bills come in July, you have the funding because you carried the funds over. Those funds have been paid. However, what happens is that the PO hasn't rolled over. So sometimes it's counting it twice when we're looking at our accounts, but it'll right itself next month.
Okay, thank you for that explanation. I'm looking in the room. Does anybody have any specific questions on any specific? Yes, Mr. Renzo.
So does that explain why, so I'm looking at the next to last page of the report, the special services tuition out, it seems like a number of those lines are almost entirely expended with large values in the encumbrances. And so when we see those next month, will there be more breathing room in those lines, I hope?
Yes, so, what you do see in there, some transfers already happened, but those are transfers that we knew with this year's funding. But yes, once you see that, you'll see some wiggle room. We actually will see some balances in here. Actually, what we're working on right now is any encumbrances that we have to do, we're making sure that we're utilizing our circuit breaker funds first, because as you know, whatever we took in last year has to be expended in this year. So our first priority is to use the circuit breaker and then go back into use the appropriated. So yes, you'll see some balances there, because we do have some, not surpluses, but we do have some POs that we feel may be coming up, so.
And so then we're not overly concerned because students will be entering the district from, here until day 180. And so there'll be money available if those students need services or if they're tuitioned out.
Yes, yes. What the other thing is that at the end of last year, so one area in the budgets, we are able to prepay bills for the next fiscal year, and that would be in special education. So we were able to prepay some invoices which were actually encumbered. So some of our encumbrances were for that we were able to utilize money. So I'm not concerned at all as far as if we would have funding. The other thing is we were able to carry over all of our circuit breaker revolving. So what we're taking in this year is also available for those. So one thing I did want to point out while I have 2 minutes is that I meet with the special education department every month. Every month we talk about what they see is happening. There's discussions, maybe pending. We talk about if there's a placement in, placement A and it's going to placement B, what that cost is. And one thing that I instituted here is that I want those encumbrances done each time there's a move. So if a student moves from one program to another program, I don't want to leave the PO out there, the purchase order out there for the lower amount or the higher amount. I want to make that change day to day so we know exactly what we have. In that meeting is the bookkeeper in special education, the director of special education, the coordinator for tuition. So we have a big group and we meet every month, and there's always something is coming up that's on their radar and they let me know. So I feel that we have a very good system here to not be in a surprise at the end of the year.
Thank you.
That's all I have, Lorinda.
Thank you, Mr. Brett. Committee members, we're really up against the end of the time, but before I call for a motion to adjourn, I will look around the room one last time. Does anybody have anything else they feel a burning need to say before we adjourn? I'm looking for that motion, please.
So moved. Second.
Second. I should have said we're next scheduled to meet on November 16th at 6:30. There's a motion on the table in a second. Mr. Manzo,
Yes.
Dr. McKenzie,
Yes.
Ms. Coelho,
Yes.
myself, yes, that passes 4-0. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you on November 16th. Ms. Abel, is this the same Zoom for the next meeting? Fantastic, thank you.
Okay, Rachel.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Today is October 26th already. My goodness, 2022. This is the Beverly School Committee, Committee of the Whole. We are meeting in a hybrid fashion this evening using a remote meeting application that allows for remote participation and full public access to the open portions of our meeting. We are also being broadcast and streamed and recorded by BevCam, so thank you so much, BevCam. And with some system upgrades, the closed captioning is available immediately on the cable broadcast, and then it is followed up on the YouTube channel within 24 hours, so that closed captioning will be available. On June 16th, 2021, the governor signed Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, and then on February 12th, and again on July 16th, 2022, he extended these provisions, which, among other things, allow public bodies to continue to hold meetings remotely until March 31st, 2023. This specifically suspends the need for a quorum and the chair to be physically present, and asks our body to use technical methods to allow for safe public access. We would encourage viewers to utilize the BevCam streaming options this evening if possible, but you can also join this platform if necessary. As noted in previous meetings, Beverly has prior approval for remote participation, although with that permission, the chair and a quorum would physically be present for the meeting. So that will still be in effect after the act and its extensions expire. Tonight is a committee of the whole meeting, which means we do not have an agenda item for addressing the body tonight. The next opportunity for that to occur will be November 9th. You can always register at residentvoice@beverlyschools.org if you would like to speak at our regular school committee meeting. Joining us today are members of the school committee and various members of the district administration and leadership teams, and I will conduct a full roll call in just a moment. For the record, since the meeting application sometimes does not show all participants. Please remember that any audio or video that you supply on this platform will become part of the meeting record. As such, please use your mute functionality to prevent background noises. Now I will conduct that roll call. Mayor Cahill.
Here.
Kimberly Coelho.
Here.
Dr. Ken-Ann McKenzie.
Here.
Ms. Karen Robinson.
Here.
Dr. Jeffrey Silva.
Here.
Ms. Lorinda Visnick.
Here.
And I am Rachel Abel. We are also joined this evening by our recording secretary, Liz Karan, the Director of Finance and Facilities, Jean Sherburne,
Here.
Superintendent, Dr. Suzanne Chorocek,
Here.
Director of Special Education and Pupil Personnel Services, there we go, Bethany Splansky. The Director of HR, Aaron Brown. And the Director of Access, Equity, and Inclusion, Dr. Andre Morgan. Close. I'm going to remember everyone's title eventually, I promise. We also have some teachers in the audience and a member of the public joining us. Also online, we have Principal Betty Taylor from the high school. And everyone else seems to be a duplicate of people who are here in person. So that's our role for the moment. I will monitor the waiting room to see if we have any others joining. Now that we've called to order and done the roll, our next order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance, and I'd like to ask Ms. Coelho to lead us this evening. And we have 2 flags, actually. There's this one here. Thank you, Ms. Coelho. Next, our order of business is the meeting records from our Committee of the Whole September 28, 2022 meeting. I'm looking for a motion to approve.
So moved.
Thank you, Mayor Cahill.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Coelho. Were there any edits or corrections that anyone noticed? Okay, not seeing any. What I will do is call the roll call for a vote. Mayor Cahill?
Yes.
Ms. Coelho?
Yes.
Dr. McKenzie?
Yes.
Ms. Robinson?
Yes.
Dr. Silva?
Yes.
Ms. Visnick?
Yes.
And Rachel will yes, 7-0. Thank you. Next, the superintendent's report.
All right, thank you very much. I have brief but important information to share with you this evening. First, we're going to hear about an overnight field trip request from Julia Brotherton and Allison Farrell, and then finally I will be just introducing, are you ready, the FY24 budget planning update, because we're digging into FY24 budget. So I'm going to ask if Julia and Allison could come up. I think you can just use that table over there. Will that work? And they're going to share some information about a overnight field trip to the Model UN conference in New York City.
Push the green button.
Yeah.
All right. Good evening, everyone. So I just want to give you a brief overview of the trip we're planning for this coming March for Model UN. So this will be an overnight conference down to New York City. We'll leave Wednesday, March 15th, I apologize. Wednesday, March 15th, and returning to Beverly on Saturday, March 18th. The conference will take place starting that afternoon.
You got a picture up there. Nice.
Oh, yeah. Haha. There we go. So we're actually excited for this trip. We'll be having, hopefully, our opening and closing ceremonies actually at the United Nations headquarters. The conference, I believe the sessions will be taking place, it's inside the hotel.
Yeah.
Speaking of hotel, it'll be at the Hilton Midtown. We are budgeting for about 8 students, 8 to 12.
We hope more like 12.
More than 12, sorry, I apologize. Yeah, so we do, in regards to cost per student, I believe we've started to crunch the numbers, and with fundraising efforts, the cost per student will be a little bit more than what we had listed, so we were looking in the
More like the $500 range.
$500 range. And I believe that is about, we'll be taking, I believe, Amtrak?
We're not sure yet.
Not sure yet. All right,
We're
we're
going to do whatever, either bus or train, whichever is the least expensive. We were kind of surprised by how reasonable the train seemed.
Yes.
Because in the past, the train has been too much for us. But,
Yeah.
and I would just add also that the last time we did a New York trip was 2019, and we tried to, it's kind of happened that we try to do one every 4 years so that a student who starts Model UN as a freshman gets to go to New York one time during their 4 years. And we are able, we hope, to apply more club funds to the costs because we did all those horrible remote conferences for a year and a half and didn't have to, they didn't cost much. So we have a pretty healthy treasury right now. It's still not, a trip to New York is not cheap, but I think we think it's doable because of that as well.
We're actually starting some fundraising efforts earlier this school year as opposed to previous years to try to get some more funds to put towards it. And we welcome any questions that you might have.
Sure. I think first order, we should probably have a motion unless we wanted to start with questions.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Okay. Question? Go ahead.
Sure. Thanks, Madam President. Thank you. This is exciting. Just a couple questions. One, typically in the New York conference, how many high schools are represented? I'm guessing they're from all over the country.
So this is the first time we'd be doing this one. This is the National High School Model United Nations, and so I don't know the answer to that. We've done Columbia University in the past, and I'd say I would get people from all over the country and the world went to that one. I would guess at least 20 schools, if not more. And then the last time we did it was kind of
It was
strange
large.
one.
Yeah, it was a lot of international students, a lot of students from Italy actually. I couldn't tell you what the total was, but the delegations they were very sizable. So it's definitely a healthy population of students all coming together from over the outside of the country and inside.
That's wonderful. Not to ask you what you can't answer, but in the past, how have they structured it in terms of topics? Are there a couple of big overriding challenges, or is it a whole host of different issues that get discussed in different committees and some are brought forward and others? What do you typically see in that sense, subject matter wise? And
So I think they do a great job. The topics that they pick for those committees are very tangible, real situations. They'll pull from, there's committees from all different actual committees in the United Nations, so it's a wide variety of.
And I would just add, the trip you approved last June for us to go to Brown University is in 2 weeks. So we're very familiar with those committee topics. And for example, there's a Commission on Sustainable Development, and that happens to be the one that I'm handling with my students. So one of the topics is rural development, and the other one is biodiversity. So there's that one, and then there's also Commission on the Status of Women, and that's yours. So I can't remember what the two subtopics are, but and we haven't seen those yet. But so there's a wide variety, and we also have there's always historical committees. So we have two of my students are doing Quebec in 1970, and the Quebec's move for some Quebecois move for independence. So it's a really wide variety.
thanks.
Do we have Dr. Silva?
Could you tell me what fraction of the class is going to this trip?
So we have
Fraction of the class of the school.
The student-
So we usually
the
take,
student in the-
we're taking 13 students to Brown. So it's a pretty small proportion. So whatever that percentage is of the 1,300
Okay, so
students to go to
it's
Beverly. We probably have 30-something students who are active members of the club, and they come and go based on sports.
okay.
and
That's
other
what I was
things.
looking for.
Yeah.
Just so roughly half, close to half. That's good.
Yeah.
Dr. McKenzie?
Hi, thanks.
hi.
I just wanted to be reminded of when this trip is. I think I missed that part.
I apologize. It's it'll be Wednesday, March 15th, and returning Saturday, March 18th.
Okay, thank you.
And I just want to add one, it just isn't really relevant to this trip, but kind of relevant to your questions, that we always try to do, usually 2 overnight trips, and then we also do day conferences, which are more local. So we're also planning to attend a conference at St. John's Prep, which kids who can't go on the long weekend trips will come with us on that trip.
Thank you for adding that. If there's no more questions, are we ready to vote? Okay, Mayor Cahill? Oh, I'm sorry, I couldn't see it. Oh, it's that little icon. Thank you. Sorry, go Ms. Visnick.
I don't have a question. I just want to say that my oldest son, out of all 4 of my children, have taken very different paths through Beverly High, and my oldest son went on the Brown trip and has just very fond memories of Model UN, and I think it is a wonderful program, and so I am always a huge supporter. And so I just want to thank the teachers who put in the extra time to do the field trip above and beyond what is really required for their classrooms. So I just wanted to take that. Thank you, Ms. Brotherton.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Visnick, for the deserved accolades. Okay, ready to vote. Mayor Cahill?
Yes.
Ms. Coelho?
Yes.
Dr. McKenzie?
Yes.
Ms. Robinson?
Yes.
Dr. Silva?
Yes.
Ms. Visnick?
Yes.
And Ms. Abel, yes, 7-0. Enjoy the trip.
Thank you.
very much.
Thank you so much. All right, and I am, my second item this evening is really just taking an opportunity to introduce everybody to the FY24 budget planning. Jean and I actually have made a conscious effort to start even earlier this year, given the number of different resources that we have and all of the items that we need to balance and look at. So again, we're keeping a very, very close eye on our spending and in addition to how our appropriated budget is spent, considering how we're utilizing ESSER funds and some of our entitlement funds. So we're trying to get a little bit earlier start, but again, our process will follow the same pattern as it has in past years. And for some of you that, I'm not sure if this is their first budget season. Is this your first budget season? Did you do a budget last year? Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, okay. So I'll just go through the whole process. So basically, what we'll do is we'll spend some time at the beginning of the budget season identifying the priorities both of the school committee and of stakeholders. We'll meet with stakeholder groups. I'll meet with the school committee members, and then we'll spend some time in the next few committee of the whole meetings talking about the budget and our priorities and explaining to you how our decision making is sort of structured. We'll collaborate with principals and central office to develop a shared framework to guide our decisions. We'll identify administrative efficiencies and restructuring opportunities, especially with some of the additional funding that's available. We'll assess enrollments and the impact that has on staffing. We'll review requests from the various departments, and we'll collaborate with the city to determine the proposed city contribution in relationship with the school budget. So that's pretty much the sort of how we will get where we need to go. Again, I will always, every time we talk about budget, direct you back to our goals. The whole purpose of the budget is to kind of help, or the purpose for our goals is to drive the decisions that we make around the budget. So just a quick reminder, we have 4 goal areas that you had approved earlier or later last spring. Creating conditions that promote equity, rigorous and consistent curriculum, innovative practices, and operations and management. And those are the broad goals that sit in our 3-year district improvement plan. Of those broad goals for the 22-23 school year, we have been focusing on particular areas, fostering a positive school community, ensuring whole child approach to success, advanced coursework, climate action planning, and hiring and retention practices. So these are the goals that we're going to focus on throughout this coming year. Again, these will also help you as you consider what your priorities might be as we move forward, letting you know what we are doing in our schools and how we're kind of working through all that. We always take time to understand what are the factors that will impact our FY24 budget as we begin it. We always have our contractual obligations. All of our MTA contracts, our Unit A, Unit B, and Unit C are still under agreement. So we actually have factual information about what those contractual obligations will be. However, we are also entering into negotiations with our AFSCME units, which is our transportation, clerical, and food service. I anticipate we'll be beginning those sometime in the coming months. And so that's an unknown right now, but something that will impact that FY24 budget. Our enrollments always impact it. We have actually in Beverly remained very steady in our enrollments, which is, I think, somewhat different than some of our neighboring communities around us, but that's been a good strong point for us. It helps us in the budget planning. Resourcing for high-quality curriculum materials, again, mostly impact the utilization partially of our ESSER funding that we have, but it's a commitment that we have. I know that Dr. Flaherty has made several presentations about the curriculum review cycle. We've been implementing K-4, a new ELA program, and we had a new math program. We're piloting some ELA programs for grades 5 through 8, as well as materials at the high school level, and we are talking about a curriculum review process for science. So we know that we have some resourcing available specifically designed for high quality curriculum, and so that's something that we think will continue to impact this budget. Our department funding requests always do, and then I do need to kind of put on the sort of like give you a quick heads up. I'm not going to delve too deep into it, but I think we can anticipate some special education increases this year. In particular, an example, the Operational Services Division, which is OSD, it's the State Executive Office of Administration and Finance, approved an increase for private schools at 14%. That's a huge number. They typically range between 1.5% and 3%. And so I've been working with Bethany, what would that impact look like? It's a pretty big number, so we can anticipate some of that. You can also, I will assure you as well that as a superintendent's group, we are, kind of pushing back on the legislative side to see, if there's going to be any relief or rethinking of that. But that's a very large increase, and it will impact, obviously, some of the decisions that we have to make on that FY24 budget. So just wanted to kind of share with you, in terms of the development process, we will work on developing, Jean will be developing a calendar for approval. Our calendar has a formula to it. Jean has to kind of begin at the end and count backwards. So this is just a sample of the 23 calendar, but we'll bring forward the 24 calendar to Finance and Facilities and subsequently to the Committee of the Whole. I think on November 16th, Jean and I think we'll be bringing that forward. And then we're going to begin our meetings with stakeholders, November 1st. We actually have strategized to kind of start a little differently this year. We actually want to bring the technology in and take a close look at that because we know that's going to impact the sustainability of our budget over the next few years, and we wanted to spend a little extra time doing that. And then I'll be setting up meetings with all of the school committee as I have in the past so that I can hear from each of you around your priorities. And we'll meet with our building leaders and our department leaders to kind of just hear what their thoughts are and what ideas they're having. And then we'll begin probably in our first discussion sometime in December. So I just mainly wanted to kind of lay that out for everyone, let you know that we're thinking about it, that we're working on it, and to kind of allow you to have some time to think about it before we start. And if there's any questions or if anyone wants to kind of come and meet with me, I'm happy to do that.
Ms. Robinson?
Yes, can you just explain the increase in private schools, 14%? Can you just explain that a little bit more?
I can share what I know. I think we'll do a much more in-depth conversation, with the committee as a whole. But the OSD by law has to, by October 1st, tell or give an estimate of what they believe any increases that might be coming would be. What they have come out and they have said 14%. My understanding is that it's based upon the fact that they had received a number of grants over the 2 previous years. They feel that they feel like in order to sustain the services that they're providing at that level, that's the increase that they require. They put it forward. Again, it's an estimate. So, I'm not sure where it will go or what it will do, but it's a pretty significant increase. And so that's why I wanted to kind of bring it forward.
Mayor Cahill.
Thanks, Madam President. And we all know what we're talking about, but if somebody watching at home doesn't, this isn't about Beverly students going to private schools. This is about Beverly Public School kids who are on IEPs.
Correct.
Who are going
Correct.
to
Correct.
either a day or a
Correct.
residential school that's licensed by the state as a special education school.
Thank you for clarifying.
Could I just ask, along those lines, that increase would go into effect next July 1 in line with the next state and city fiscal years?
Correct. It will hit the FY24 budget.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Ms. Visnick?
Thank you, Isabel. Let me try to figure out how low my hand there. Thanks. I have 2 questions for Dr. Trocek relative to the sustainability of our budget. The first is around especially in light of this portable use of a huge, big additional cost, my brain immediately goes to, well, where are we going to cut? And so I want to ask about our current elementary class sizes. They're all incredibly beautifully low. And I want to know if that is due to ESSER funds, and if, or restated, when we finish with our ESSER funds, do we anticipate that our elementary class sizes will go up, or maybe our elementary class sizes will even go up even though we're not out of ESSER funds because we're going to have to find money somewhere for the special education costs?
So want me to take that one first?
That's a formulated question, but I hope
Okay.
you can put those thoughts together.
Yes. No, thank you. And I want to, I didn't throw this information out to put everyone into a panic. Trust me, we will, it's not something that's going to tip the scale. We'll just have to work within it. I do believe, though, that it's going to have a significant impact on, actually probably a larger impact on some of our smaller surrounding communities, because their budgets are smaller and they can't withstand, I mean, not that it's a big increase, but I think we can, find a way to make that work. In terms of so I didn't mean to do that to send everyone to panic, but I also didn't want, like, 3 months down the line for us to say, oh, and by the way, there's a 14% increase, and have everyone go, what is that? And how are we going to do that? I will keep you all informed about what work the superintendent's group is doing around legislative advocacy. I think I might reach out to some of you and ask for your help around legislative advocacy, I think, around some of those questions. But I also, I just didn't want to leave that unspoken, as I said, special education costs, and have you wonder, what did I mean by that? Because we haven't always thrown that up there in the last few years. So in terms of class sizes, so I can tell you that only 3 of our elementary positions right now are ESSER funded, only 3 of the class size. So, and if you look closely at your favorite worksheet, which I know you know which one I mean, there are some that are extremely low. And so I think you'll be able to kind of easily pick out. And so, our goal would be to continue to maintain class sizes as best we can. The ones that are exceedingly low, those you can find them on the sheet. I think one of them is at like 15 or so. And yeah, so we know right away that that's an area that we're anticipating not continuing that position beyond ESSER, no matter what, right? That's just and that really is about recovery, and how principals are identifying, places that they want to use the resources because they feel like there's a need in that grade level, or, they're focusing on early literacy, or they have a particular goal that they're working to achieve with those positions. So I will assure you all, just as I did last year, Jean, and I will always keep you informed and work with you on our matrix as to what we're doing with positions. We are really trying not to have a lot of positions, but we also don't want to let an opportunity go by. If we need to utilize positions to provide more interventions or more supports, we want to do that while that's what the money's there for. And so we want to make sure that we're using it well, but that we're also that we're also very transparent every time we have a position, which ones are on ESSER, which ones we intend to try to move in, which ones, as we go. And so we are maintaining that matrix kind of formula that we sort of began showing you last year around which positions were on ESSER, which positions are not. We have already, as a cabinet, met for an entire day to take a look at we called it our little mini financial summit, to make sure that we were beginning to prepare for these conversations and discussions. So, we will keep you in the loop all the way through as to how that is going and what we're going to be doing. A big chunk of the ESSER money will go to those high quality curriculum materials. So if you remember, the cost of the reading program that we put in was somewhere around $600,000. We're looking at a 5 through 8 implementation of a similar high quality program for our literacy. So you can anticipate that some of that ESSER funding will be coming from that. And I know that Dr. Thomas and Dr. Flaherty are are working really hard at looking at our science curriculum materials to make sure that we're also taking advantage of the opportunity to resource those materials as well. And we have done our math K to 12 as well. So we're looking more at ESSER money for some of those types of expenses that are not things that will cause us great grief when the FY25 budget rolls around.
Dr. Silva.
Those two examples that you gave with the curriculum.
Yep.
Is there a reoccurring cost after?
Yes, so that's one of the reasons why we want to meet with technology. Most of them have reoccurring licensing costs, and so we're working really hard to set our licensing renewals up so that we're not getting hit with everything in one year, so that, perhaps if there's a licensing for the social studies materials, it's going to happen in 24, and then the relicensing for math in 25. So we're trying to work to make sure that we're finding out what that relicensing number would be and then setting it up so that it's not all recurring at one time.
And is it a fraction of the initial?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes,
okay.
definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. But I mean, it's still a number, but it's not that one time is a one time. The 600,000 is a lot of the books too, right? So what's recurs is the licensing for the software.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Ms. Visnick.
Thank you again. Dr. Churchick, you live right down the street, but maybe you can have your ear to the chatter here in Beverly. There's a lot of chatter right now, concern around housing and new housing and building new housing. And I wonder if you can answer a very specific question around the capacity of our schools. And as we look at our budget, we don't have our own capital improvement line item in our budget. So that means if we were to have to expand a given school, we would have to be looking to the city for those funds. So I wish to ask you, relative to our schools and the capacity of our schools, if you can speak to whether we are anywhere near capacity at any of our schools, and whether we would have to be looking at an expansion of any given school.
So I would say that one of the great things that happened for us was when we built the middle school, we moved the 5th grade out of the elementary buildings, because if we were still trying to have K through 5 in some of those buildings, we would have run out of space. I think at a K to 4 model, our buildings are comfortable right now. I think that there are a couple of schools that are at a high use of space, but remember, if some of them are because they have a 5th first grade, or they've added a 4th section of a grade level with that ESSER funding. And so that's a big part of our space crunch, because we are maintaining in some cases some small spaces, or we're utilizing and having extra interventionists in, and we're utilizing some of those spaces. I mean, the middle school is always sort of, the middle school is at its, I don't know that there's much space for expansion at the middle school, but I think we're still comfortably fitting into, I think, use a couple more maker spaces than we would have liked for other purposes than they were originally designed. But I also think that our global application model at the middle school is very strong because of that. So we've added a couple of art classes and expanded them into a makerspace. But we do still have makerspaces available for opportunities for that. So I'd say we have a pretty high capacity. And I'd say at the high school, and I think Mrs. Taylor's on the line, so she can maybe help me, but I think that we utilize all the rooms, but we don't utilize them all the time every block. And so there is some room at the high school for that. So I don't know that there's discussion about us not having enough individual space in a building. I think our programs are expanding, and that's probably the area that we look at the most at. So whether the AIM program, either at Cove or at North Beverly, what spaces they're utilizing. But that's because we're expanding our programming and keeping kids in district, and expanding some of our special education programs. So I don't know if that answered the question, but at least that's a general overview of where we are right now in terms of capacity with our buildings.
Right, thank you. And that did answer it. I think that as we continue to bring more special ed students back, which is a wonderful thing for multiple reasons, especially the price increase, right? We just kind of need to keep an eye on that and or have these kind of conversations so that the narrative of our schools are bursting at the seams, which is a false narrative, can be dismissed.
Last chance for questions for Dr. Trocek. Okay, moving on from the chair, I just want to remind folks of some dates. I can't believe how quickly October has passed us by. Looking forward next week on Wednesday, November 2nd, to the MASC Joint Conference down in Hyannis, and Dr. McKenzie will be joining, along with Dr. Trocek, Dr. Morgan. I think that's the contingency from Beverly at this point. Also on November 2nd, please do not forget to return the superintendent evaluation for the 21-22 school year to Donna, so she has an opportunity to compile those with Ms. Brown, and so that we can have them in our packet in advance of our November 9th meeting. So we have a CISL at 6:30 and a regular school committee November 9th. And then as Ms. Visnick reported, the Finance and Facilities and Committee of the Whole is on November 16th, which is a week earlier than usual due to the Thanksgiving holiday and the early release day on that third Wednesday. So we'll be on the 2nd. So we'll be stacked on the 9th and the 16th for our 2 school committee meetings. I did also want to highlight a couple of other dates that you might want to put on your calendar. They sort of fit in with what we heard about during the Finance and Facility meeting today. Electronics recycling will be happening at our high school on Saturday, November 5th at 8 o'clock. And this is actually a fundraiser as well for our music department at the high school. So if you have electronics that are not appropriate to be placed into the trash at your curbside, please do consider bringing them on November 5th at 8 a.m. to the high school. For her composting, the Green Beverly will be again hosting the Great Pumpkin Smash. I know a lot of our elementary schools collected pumpkins last year and participated in the inaugural event. I have seen some postings from our friends at Green Beverly that they have created their own trebuchet, and so it's seeming like it's going to be a wonderful event. That's Sunday, November 6th at 1 p.m. There is a lot more detail available on social media platforms if you want to look into the details of that. And I saw that the holiday craft fair at Beverly High School is returning, so I would be remiss if I didn't ask you to mark your calendars for Saturday, November 12th in the field house, I believe. So that's a welcome return at our high school. I don't know if there were any other dates that escaped me that people wanted to just throw on our calendars. Okay, with that. Oh, yes. Sorry, Lorinda.
Election day.
Oh, Election Day, November 8th. Tuesday, November 8th is a no school day for our students. And I think I saw a couple bake sales. Yeah, so we'll have to support those, even if it's not your ward. Make sure you hit some of the polling places that have the bake sales going. So thank you. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you, Ms.
Second.
Coelho. Second. Okay, thank you, Dr. McKenzie. And the roll call, Mayor Cahill.
Yes.
Ms. Coelho.
Yes.
Dr. McKenzie.
Yes.
Ms. Robinson.
Yes.
Dr. Silva.
Yes.
Ms. Visnick.
Yes.
And Ms. Abel. Yes. It's 8:11. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, BevCam. Appreciate it very much. And thank you for joining us in person.